How's it going, everyone? It's your favorite apostates. I'm McKay.
I'm Jordan.
And welcome back. We might have new people watching this one. So if you are unfamiliar with us, we are married. We are former Mormons, and we like to talk about the Mormon influencer sphere on social media and things like that, and the wider reaching consequences and implications of those kinds of things. So if you're new, welcome.
And we have a whole playlist of Mormon influencers at your disposal if this is intriguing to you, the likes of which has big names like Ballerina Farm and upcoming cool videos about other big influencers. So stay tuned.
And we are continuing to work through our Mormon influencer roundup. And every single time we really get going on it, we are interrupted to do
a different video. Which is why we're here today.
Yes. So that is coming. I'm every day adding new stuff to it. So keep your eye out. We will get there soon. But this one was more of a pressing matter and fell into our lap suddenly because we were completely blissfully unaware that she is Mormon and lives in Utah.
Yeah, I was ignoring this whole thing because I didn't want to be agitated by it, and I knew I was going to be agitated by it. If you're also new here, I'm also an associate licensed therapist, and so I try to keep my TikTok For You page of like brain rot instead of things that are going to make me mad. And so I was just ignoring this whole debacle and was not planning on getting into this at all. But then McKay brought it to my attention that somebody pointed out that she's Mormon. And that is, fortunately or unfortunately, our corner of the internet. So welcome.
And welcome Nurse Hannah, who we're going to be talking about today, otherwise known as Hannah Hiatt.
Or Hannah Brady.
Yeah, depending on... She used to be known as Nurse Hannah on TikTok, and then she's moved away from that, and we'll get a little bit into that, and is now mostly just doing mom content and stuff like that. But you may know her from videos that went viral on social media, such as this one where she goes through her house and picks up 17 dirty diapers that were left on the floor in one day. And another one where she was 25 weeks pregnant and admitted that she had never gone to the doctor at that point, a nurse, 25 weeks. Yeah, that's where you probably knew her from before. Now it's blowing up for an entirely different reason, and we will get into that. But first, let's start from the beginning.
With where it all began.
So I don't know where, I don't think I went back. She has a YouTube channel now, and she did a little like freeform.
She started that
AMA.
like the end of October.
Yeah. And in that video, she describes that she, from basically a very young age, I think she said at 3, they lived in Albuquerque, and she went all the way through high school, went off to college for a little bit. But while she was in high school, she was also doing a tandem program to get nursing certification. Because I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good thing to do if you want a career in nursing, if that's something that interests you. After doing that, she went to college for a little bit, decided that wasn't for her, and then she went on a mission, an LDS mission, where she served in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. The timeline for that is a little interesting because about 11 months into her mission, COVID hit. And everything shut down. My sister was actually on her mission when that happened too, and it sounded pretty miserable. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I don't know what the circumstances were. It probably varied from mission to mission, but I'm sure that they offered missionaries an opportunity to just go home because nobody was allowed to go out and do proselytizing like they normally were. They were only allowed to be on social media to do like digital proselytizing so much. They'd just be trapped in their houses the whole time. And that sparked a memory of me being trapped in my house because my companion was sick for a week straight when I had just gotten to the mission. I didn't speak Spanish. I wasn't allowed to go out, and I just had time to myself the whole time where I wasn't allowed to leave. And that sounds pretty miserable. So she went home early, but while she was on her mission, her parents moved to Evanston, Wyoming, which if you've been on I-80
a time or two,
and you've had to drive,
there's not much there, folks.
It's It's a mid-sized town in Wyoming, which would be a small town basically anywhere else. It's Evanston, whatever.
Not like
Shout
a
out
big
to her family.
Mormon population by any means.
But it is the closest major town to Utah.
There are temples in Wyoming.
So,
but it's not like Utah in terms of like tons of Mormons. So I'm not really sure what the reasoning was behind that.
Yeah, not really sure. Whatever. It doesn't really matter to me because that's her family's business. Whatever. Before she came home, her mom met the mom of her future husband, who actually was serving in the same mission in Arkansas. And somehow they didn't really know each other. I don't know. Some missions are bigger than others. Sometimes you never cross paths with people, even if there's big conferences with all missionaries or whatever. But it's kind of interesting that they met because of being in the same mission, and then their parents...
It is absolutely not allowed to engage in any kind of romantic activity on your mission, let's be clear. So it's somewhat controversial, but it happens all the time.
Yeah. But the fact that she didn't know him while she was there, it's kind of...
I'm assuming nothing happened there, but people are going to be like, but missionaries can't...
No, missionaries can't have any sort of relationships, especially not with other missionaries.
It's just like a huge thing in common, essentially.
Yeah. And so he came home about 6 weeks later, and then they got together, and I think she said they got together in like July, and then they were married in December.
Traditional Mormon timeline, if you're not familiar. Can't have sex before marriage, so you gotta move along quickly.
Yeah, no shade there. That's as fast. I mean, I came home in February.
March.
Oh, yeah, March. I came home in March. We first went out on a date in May, and then we were married in January, at the beginning of January. So
that's ours was pretty long for Mormons,
yeah,
I feel like.
For a lot of Mormons, it's pretty long. It was supposed to be longer. We actually moved it up.
I wonder why. But important context I feel like to give here is in my research that is all available to the public that anybody can find. I wanted context on the families a little bit. And both of their families, if it was not already obvious, are like very deeply Mormon. Like very Mormon. Both of them have a generous amount of siblings, pretty standard for Mormon families. Like, 3, 4, 5 plus siblings, even more than that is not uncommon within Mormonism. And evidence throughout their life, like cornerstones of their life, pictures at the temple, very family oriented and conspiracy laden. Conspiracies everywhere. Yeah, because that generation isn't the greatest at learning how to private things on Facebook. And maybe they do it intentionally. I don't know. But it leaves it open for...
They wear their opinions on their chest, Jordan.
For people like me, when I research and start scrolling and go, oh!
That's interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. So Hannah's beliefs, which we'll get to in a minute, which, let's be clear, not every Mormon believes in conspiracy theories, okay? Not every Mormon does.
They're definitely more gullible and
they are more susceptible to fall down that pipeline that exists there. But not all of them believe in that. There are lots of Mormons who believe in science and things, and it's kind of against the grain of Mormonism a little bit. But let's be clear, that's not like a requirement for Mormonism. However, the COVID nonsense that I saw on both dads, both her husband's father and her father, during the pandemic, absolutely crazy. Like, I will put up some screenshots. I'm not going to say his name so nobody goes and finds him. We're not trying to dox him. But just so you have for reference a potential understanding point of where Hannah might have developed some of these beliefs, this makes sense. We've got like weird conspiracy theory, like New World Order weirdness happening here. Don't wear a mask. Masks don't work. And the irony of it all is I'm scrolling through her dad's posts, and then I learn that he's a fucking doctor.
A podiatry.
So...
like... yeah. Not the kind of doctor I would like to be going to if they're denying science.
Not personally. I mean, that's just my own personal preference. I'm sure he's a nice man and a nice doctor. At least I hope so. But that is...
concerning.
That is concerning, and it lends itself to, okay, maybe these are where she has developed some of these beliefs. And her husband clearly grew up in a family that espoused very similar things. It would make sense to me that her parents would be friends because these dads are like two peas in a pod here with their weird COVID hoax beliefs. And then just lots of also inherently bigoted Mormon things like Braxton, her husband's dad, being against like same-sex marriage and homosexuality and things. And so very traditional Mormon from both families, it appears, based on my research. And lots of like siblings still on missions, siblings coming home from missions, siblings getting married in the temple. Like all of that is like about as cut and dry Mormon as you can get when it comes to like figuring out if people are Mormon or not. Yeah. Usually people are talking to us about the garments. I've never seen evidence that she wears garments in the videos that I've seen. I feel like she dresses fairly modestly.
Yeah.
For the most part. So if she dresses modestly, you're really not going to be seeing them anyway. Mormon influencers tend to have a controversial relationship with garments as it is. But she did go through the temple. Like
they got married in the temple.
They got married in the temple, as you will see by this photo that I screenshotted and from one of her TikTok videos that's on their wall. Which means if you get married in the temple, you have to go through the ceremonies, like the secret ceremonies that no one's allowed to talk about, that we have videos of. And so
you are, but you aren't.
She would have gotten the garments at that point. Like her garments would have been activated and she would have to wear them. She would have, I believe you covenant to wear them. And so she should be wearing them day and night for the rest of her life. So if she's not, it's a question that her bishop's going to ask about. But Mormonism is a center point to this story. So I just want to emphasize just how deep it goes. This isn't like a casual Mormon relationship here. This is not a casual Mormon influencer.
I mean, we know that they got married in the temple. There's a picture of them on their wedding day in front of the Payson temple on their wall.
And I probably could have found more, but she privated her Instagram by the time I got to it.
So it's not like, and she talks about it too, and we'll go over that a little bit. Anyway, let's skip forward a little bit. She is a long-term care nurse, which essentially is a nurse that works in a nursing home. And when she got on TikTok, she realized, there's a lot of people making content regarding nursing, but there's not really a lot of people who are long-term care nurses who are making content. So she started with that. And that's where she gets the moniker of Nurse Hannah, because she started making content about nursing and talking about how much she does. At one point, she said that she would do like 40 patients in a day. If you are a long-term care nurse out there and you are in the comments, please let me know, is 40 patients a lot? Because
that seems crazy.
It sounds like a lot. But I have no idea. I have no baseline. So she was talking about things like that. And she was also sharing some rather controversial opinions that likely come from her upbringing and things of that nature that were making people a little bit concerned that a nurse with those kinds of opinions was taking care of people who are vulnerable and things like that. So a lot of the issues started arising when she was sharing her controversial opinions, and obviously when people are sharing concerning opinions, she was getting a lot of flack.
Oh, and then the bigger I got on TikTok with nursing, the more people like to comment and call the Utah Board of Nursing on me. And not that I was ever doing anything wrong, because I literally spoke to the Utah Board of Nursing several times about this. I knew I was not doing anything wrong. And they would tell me, they would call me. The first time I ever got a phone call from the Utah Board of Nursing, I think I crapped my pants. I was terrified. But I talked to the guy, and he was like, just so you know, like, people are calling us. And he's like, I watched a lot of your videos. I watched tons of your videos. And he's just like, you're fine. You're not. He's like, you're always covering up HIPAA stuff. Your work is fine with it. He's like, then we're chill, right? You're not doing anything wrong.
Now, is that the best thing to do? I don't know. I'm not here to say whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but personally, if I had a nurse and I knew for a fact that that nurse was anti-vaccine, if they weren't going to give me the quality of care that I expect when I'm paying an exorbitant amount of money to be there, then I would ask to have a different nurse. And I think people should have the freedom to know these kinds of things.
Well, it's not even the freedom to know. It's if you're going to blast that shit on Facebook or you're going to blast that shit on TikTok, this, my friend, is the consequences of your actions. As of late, like I checked, because all like licensing, especially for professions like mine, like hers, that are licensed, like you have to have a license in order to operate within them. Their licensing information is public. Like that's information, like if you search up a doctor, you should be able to verify that their license is active and you're not like seeing some freak, right? So I looked up her license, and as of a day or two ago when I looked at it is still active. There's, each state has its own regulating body. The Utah has the Department of Professional Licensing, and her license is still active, and it shows that there has been no disciplinary action up to this date. And she talks about how it's kind of a joke to her how many people call the nursing board on her and like tell her, and the nursing board has to call her, and it's like a whole thing, and she's like, she finds it amusing. I don't find it amusing.
I don't think it's funny at all. Yeah, that's kind of like a concerning point, and it carries over into later accusations that we'll get to. But to be so flippant about people's concerns about how you're doing your job, especially in a field like healthcare, is like, it's just such a red flag. Like, you don't take it seriously, and everybody's wrong except for you. And then you have the board that's saying, well, you're not doing anything wrong that would be an offense to lose your license or anything like that, as if they're like the board of ethics and they're the end all be all for what you should and shouldn't be doing. Like, obviously they're the authority on what you should and shouldn't be doing, but sometimes they're humans too. They have their own opinions, and it's all
freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech, right? So in that sense, yeah, I think she should be able to come on the internet and share her controversial opinions. But also, if you fuck around, you're going to find out. You're free to express those opinions, and people are free to formulate their own opinions and feelings about that. So
you are free to do whatever you want in that capacity, but you are not free from the consequences of the things that you choose to do, which is, I think, what she is going to find out. Now, I don't necessarily think that the nursing board is going to discipline her here, because
if she's not done anything illegal, it's just her opinions.
Well, there are very specific rules that each regulatory body has, right? And you agree when you enter the profession that you're going to align yourself with those things and like uphold certain like values and ethics within the profession. And if she doesn't concretely go against or break one of those things, then it's going to be hard for a regulatory body to do anything about that. Now, is that right or is that wrong? That's up for you to decide. I'm just telling you the way that it is.
Anyway, with these issues, she decided she didn't want to be risking her job anymore, so she started to pivot toward making mom content. I'm not sure exactly when that pivot started to happen. She changed her username away from Nurse Hannah to her regular name and started focusing more on the mom side of her life. And one of the big videos that she hit it big with was one where she starts talking to the camera and admits that she's 25 weeks pregnant and has not gone to the doctor.
I'm 25 weeks pregnant or so. Haven't been to the doctor one single time, so I don't really know. So yeah, literally could be having twins, don't even know it. Also, I don't really plan on going to the doctor anytime soon. I just honestly don't feel like it's that necessary when you're pregnant. Now, you guys might think I'm crazy. Oh, you're a nurse and you don't go to the doctor. Oh, you're a nurse and you're anti-doctor. I'm not anti-doctor. I just don't think it's that necessary. Like, I feel fine. Baby's growing. I trust my body to grow a baby. Like, what do you think they did back in, 1920? You think they were going to the doctor, 10, 15 times while they were pregnant? No. Last time when I was pregnant with my son, I didn't go to the doctor until I was about 25 weeks. That time, it was because of, insurance problems. But I think I just learned that it's not that necessary. My symptoms are manageable. I don't really get that sick. And I trust my body to know how to grow a baby. A lot of people think I'm crazy because they're like, oh, what if it has health conditions and you don't even know? What does that have to do with anything? That wouldn't change my decisions or anything. It doesn't matter to me. This baby will be loved regardless of complications, health problems, anything like that. I literally could be having twins, don't even know it. I'm 25-ish weeks pregnant. Based off of getting pregnant in January, puts me at a September-ish due date. So that's what we're going with. So basically, whenever I go into labor will be when I go into labor.
This caused quite a stir for a lot of people. I even ended up seeing it because of a stitch on TikTok that Jen Hamilton made.
I love Jen.
If you don't know who Jen is, she's a very popular nurse content creator, or probably know her more as the lady who swaddles chickens. She's a neonatal nurse, or
she's labor and delivery.
Labor and delivery or something like that. So shout out to her. But I don't know. This brings up a conversation because in her response to Jen, because everybody was concerned, 25 weeks without going to the doctor is pretty crazy because she was saying, I trust my body. I know that my body knows how to grow a baby because that's what it's intended to do.
That's fundy logic right there.
Yeah.
Remember what used to happen when we didn't have doctors and OBGYNs and scans and, things to assess for fetal abnormalities? Do you remember what happened during those things? Yeah, women died. Children died. That bodies don't just inherently work.
And that was kind of the reasoning. She was like, back in the 20s, what did they do?
People died.
They just died.
Oh my God.
Are we really that dense here? I'm sorry. And
okay, Jordan here in editing again with some research that I think is pertinent for this specific topic. The United States has the highest maternal and infant mortality rates out of any other comparable high-income country, despite spending the most on healthcare out of those countries. This particularly applies disproportionately to women of color. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention states that more than 80% of pregnancy-related deaths were preventable, and cities that are improving prenatal care is one of the top recommended interventions needed. According to the Office on Women's Health in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, babies of mothers who do not get prenatal care are 3 times more likely to have low birth weight and 5 times more likely to die than those born to mothers who do get care. Now back to your original programming. You know your family history. You're Mormon. Look back a few generations and see how common it was for children to die, for women to die in childbirth. Like, that was the unfortunate truth of that time period. And thanks to the advancement of medicine, things are different now. And we're not here to say that you have to have like a very hands-on medical pregnancy, but I would like for pregnant women to have at least some care.
I mean, you even look in, like, they were talking about in Sunday school. It comes up constantly how many miscarriages and stillbirths that Emma Smith had, Joseph Smith's wife. Like, it should be pretty obvious that it's not the most natural. There are complications.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of who you are, or anything can happen. And it's just important to the health of the fetus that you go and make sure that you're with a doctor. And in her response to Jen, because she's like, oh shit, everybody's concerned about this, she was just kind of like, I don't want to say making excuses, because I think that this is a really big issue in the United States, basically saying that they don't really have health insurance that's not really expensive, which is true for a lot of people. They make too much to qualify for Medicaid, which is true for a lot of people. And it's hard to go into the market and get a plan that works for you when you have a family and you know that you need to do checkups, because usually it's high deductible. You're paying a lot per month. I get that. I totally get that. But then the real sucker punch was that she, and this is to no fault of her own, this is rhetoric in politics and those kinds of spaces, especially in Utah. She didn't realize that you could go to Planned Parenthood and get an ultrasound done. And she was like, oh, maybe I should do that. And I was like, yes, because all of the rhetoric surrounding Planned Parenthood, especially in Utah and other red states, is that Planned Parenthood funds abortions, and that's it. They don't know that you can go there to get sex education. They don't know that you can go there to get prenatal care. They don't know that, there's all these other services that Planned Parenthood offers other than just doing abortions. And she didn't even think that she could go there and do that, which is a tragedy, because she should have gotten care a lot earlier. She made it to 30 weeks without even seeing a doctor. So,
and for reference, pregnancy is generally only 40 weeks long. So that's only 10 away from delivery.
Yeah, to go that whole time and never see a doctor. And she said that she was taking her vitals and stuff, but there are things that they do at the doctor that are more than whatever you're going to have on hand at your house, even if you're a nurse.
Yeah.
So it's just really concerning behavior, and it's not uncommon for a lot of like fundies to not see a doctor, because there could be something that is life-threatening to you that you would never encounter just by checking your vitals or whatever, or even to the baby, because
you just don't have all the information.
Yeah.
And like those things are there, if you want things that are minimally invasive, like most OBs are willing to work with you. Yeah. Like, I'm like, at least do something, but it is becoming increasingly common, like in the Fundiverse, to like this crunchy shit is kind of getting insane to the point that they don't get any maternal or prenatal health care at all. And that's just not healthy for anyone. And so, and then, they're being weird about like the glucose drink that you have to drink at some point to test for gestational diabetes. And like, there's so much misinformation, largely in part thanks to some conservative ideology and fundies who perpetuate this shit. But I think that's what bothers a lot of people is like, people put stock in the fact that she is a nurse, like she is a healthcare professional. So then people are like, oh, well, like if a nurse is comfortable not getting any prenatal care, then like I don't have to get any prenatal care. And that can be deadly. So it's not to say I hope you don't base your life decisions off of what influencers do or what I say or what he says, but it would be a lie to say that she doesn't have influence here.
Yeah. Because there are people out there who will take, those titles hold weight. And just the same as Jordan's title also holds weight. And when she says things that are her opinions, and if they don't align with best practices in her profession or whatever, that could cause serious real world damage. So when you have a platform, you have credentials that people tend to trust you. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who trust Nurse Jen. Apparently, Hannah trusted Nurse Jen, or
probably
Jen
up until then.
Up until then, maybe enough to make a response and say, "Yeah, this is probably not looking so good. I have a tough time remembering and all that." So anyway, it's just really
irresponsible.
dangerous precedent to set.
Irresponsible is what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so that happened earlier in the year. I think it was around June here in 2024. And then we get to October. I didn't even realize it was the same person. But on comes this trend after Hannah shares a video of herself picking up diapers in her house after a day of solo parenting.
Let's pick up all the dirty diapers I have lying around my house right now. I kid you not, my guess is probably 15. I don't own a diaper pail or a diaper genie or whatever they're called. They just kind of get thrown around my house, and then we just collect them in a bag at the end of the day and take them out to the dumpster. So I've been solo parenting for the last 24 hours, so we're gonna see how many dirty diapers we have just lying around with 2 kids. So I'm counting just 4 diapers right here on the coffee table. Found another one right behind the couch. Oh, found 2 more. Okay, so right away I'm seeing 1, 2, 3 diapers. And then into the bedroom. This is the corner of what my side of the bed looks like at night. It's embarrassing, I know. I think if I counted right, that's 17 diapers lying around my house. No wonder my house friggin' stinks right now.
Now, this video in particular sparked a lot of commentary on motherhood and taking care of children. And I will say, I was very sympathetic. Knowing nothing else, I was very sympathetic to her plight because I think it is really exemplary of the degradation of having those support systems as a parent in today's society. I mean, both of their parents live in Evanston, which from where they live now,
it's a long way.
No, it's only like an hour.
But still, that's like
it's still far away, and it's tough because I don't know if they have people around to help out.
I know both dads work, so it's like,
yeah. So
our
it's
systems
really tough.
are messed up. We don't have the village anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think about when I was a kid, my grandparents didn't work anymore, and or at least they had schedules that were lax enough that they could do that. My kids' grandparents all work. Every single one of them, they work 9 to 5 jobs. So it's not a luxury that people can afford anymore to have grandparents around all the time to help them out when they're struggling. And I mean, she now has a toddler and a newborn, which is tough. Every time we were considering having another kid, I was like, I can handle a toddler, that's fine. But if I have to fend off a toddler from beating the crap out of me and take care of a newborn at the same time, I don't know if I can handle that. So that's a big consideration to take. So when I know that she's dealing with something that's that difficult, I can have some sympathy for that. And I can have some sympathy for things that are like that, where you're just trying to keep your head above fucking water and feed your kids and make sure that they're safe and not hurting themselves or other people and not running off into the wild and getting lost and things of that nature.
I can have empathy for someone in that position as a mom who also went through a really tough postpartum period. Like, I think this is a scenario where I can have compassion in one hand for the experience, because moms during postpartum periods experience all kinds of horrible things, whether it's intrusive thoughts, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's OCD, whether it's psychosis. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong and be difficult during the postpartum period. And that's not even mentioning the biological and like, you know, neurochemical, hormonal things that are happening to your body that you don't even have control over during that time. And so I have a lot of empathy for people in postpartum periods that are seemingly behind or struggling or like behind the curve or feel like they can't get caught up. And in the grand scheme of things, like when this first came out, I didn't really give a whole lot of weight to this, because it's like, okay, you take the diapers out at the end of the day. You don't have a diaper genie because you can't afford it. As long as you throw them in the trash at the end of the day, it doesn't really bother me. It's not how I would choose to live, because I have like superhuman smell and that would drive me fucking crazy and I couldn't tolerate it. But if that's what she has to do in order to be able to give attention and care to the people in her household, then maybe there's a discussion of that. And I know other people are like, this means that it's a gross environment and it's not healthy for the kids to be, you know, around that all the time.
Obviously, it's a hazard.
Obviously, it's not great.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not ideal behavior, and I can empathize with that.
Yeah.
And if that would have been where this stopped, I think my empathy for Hannah would have been stronger.
Definitely.
But it's struggling at this point. Like, I can have empathy for most people, but I'm having a hard time.
It is not standing the test of time.
I still have empathy, but I'm having a hard time.
Fast forward to current, which is, I mean, it's only been like 2 months. For the love of God.
And she kept talking
fucking
about it.
Roller coaster.
Kept talking about it.
She went, this became her whole brand essentially. 17 diapers.
She's the 17 diapers mom.
She's the 17 diapers mom. She's going on podcasts. She's going on, didn't you
talk
say
show.
Talk shows.
I am currently in New York City because of 17 diapers. I am now known as the 17 diaper mom. That's probably going to follow me forever, being that I threw away 17 diapers in my house. So I'm thinking, let's make something out of it. I'm in New York City. I was on a talk show yesterday.
I mean, this would be a layup for Ellen, honestly. Back in the day. And so this becomes her brand. She continues to do mom content. And obviously, you may be new here, but we are not fans of family vlogs and the way that mom content is happening today, because it is an exposure that I don't think that people really understand.
And children can't consent to.
Mm-hmm. And children are having their stories told and shown how they live and how they're developing. And I don't think that is appropriate for the internet. And I don't think Hannah really realized exactly what that could morph into either.
We just have an issue with family vlogging in general. This isn't like a pick on Hannah situation.
We have tons of videos you can go and see. We are
anti-family vlogging.
We're very consistent. Okay. We're not offering any sort of.
We have seen the dangers of family vlogging. We have seen it, and it continues to happen. And I think it is going to continue to unfold, especially as these children who have been filmed their whole lives age out of being children and start to tell their stories. And so it is dangerous. Kids cannot consent. They don't have informed consent. They don't understand. They don't have fully developed brains. They're not capable of a whole lot of deep critical thinking to be able to say, I don't want that on the internet when my employer Googles my name in 20 years. I don't want that when, I don't want that connected to my social media anytime I have a profile, and when my friends go to search me, that's the first thing that comes up. Like, there are lots of implications to this that I don't think people understand. And if your kids say they're okay with it right now, that's irrelevant, especially because her kid, the older of the two, is especially way too young to understand this.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of issues just with that alone. The internet kind of splits a little bit on this. I feel like I saw more controversy rather than support, but I did see a lot of support. There was kind of another trend that evolved out of this where other moms talked about like what was their 17 diapers during postpartum, which was a lot of, moms talking about like how they had really bad intrusive thoughts and, some things that are not uncommon with the postpartum experience, which I think drawing attention to the postpartum experience and making people more aware of what can happen and what resources are available should you need them, I think is very valuable. But she kind of got irritated with the controversy and kind of the the comments that she was getting and felt obviously shamed by them, which a lot of them were shameful in nature. I'm sure a lot of them were just horrible because people on the internet are terrible. There's no doubt about that. But anything that could have been like leveled as constructive criticism, I don't think was interpreted as such. I feel like she gets bitter at this point, and it kind of just looks like rage bait to me from like here on out, where it's like purposefully being pissed off at the internet, purposefully calling people out for saying things that are, you know, not productive, or like it's just constant like rehashing of like, people keep coming at me about the 17 diapers thing. And I'm like, if it's that bothersome to you, delete the video.
Just stop talking about it.
But you won't.
Move on.
Because there's money to be made in this field, right? If you're in the creator program, which I don't know if she is, I would imagine she is.
Oh, she definitely she has.
Then she's making money off this content.
Well, and regardless if she's getting money from TikTok directly, she gets tons of sponsorships because of this. Because a lot of brands saw this and thought, this is a good thing to hitch our wagon to because of the conversations that are being had. Brands like Clorox.
Clorox sent her a diaper genie.
Mm-hmm.
Coterie, which is like a baby company. They have like diapers and wipes that I had never heard of. I don't think she partnered with them, but they sent her a PR package.
Hydro Jug.
Helix sent her a mattress, presumably paid partnership. And then other just random things she advertises like on her channel or on her TikTok. But it's like there was lots to be gained.
Yeah.
Clearly from this.
And obviously I want her kids to be fed and to have a good life. But obviously it does not seem like this is, from what we have seen on the internet, this I don't think is the right way to do it. And I think this is going to have long-lasting implications and damaging consequences over the lifetime of these kids, especially if it continues the way that it is.
So now bringing you up to present moment, where she's kind of taken the internet by storm. I've seen it like all over, like not even being invested in this. It came across my For You page like naturally. She is since pivoting to mom content and sharing things about being a mom and her daily life and all of those things. Since that's the bulk of her content, she spends a lot of time talking about motherhood and parenting and has a lot of controversial opinions and things that people feel like borderline on abuse when it comes to how she decides to parent her children. We're just going to show you a few clips that are examples of this that people found concerning.
I don't think a lot of people were really clued into what she was saying all the time. Some of these videos, they didn't get a lot of interaction before now, but the thing that really set everything in motion was a video that she posted, and in one clip, they're in the grocery in the freezer aisle, and her husband kind of turns with a box of like ice cream mochi things, and her son braces himself. Like, this is not a flinch where you're just like that. He like puts his arms up and kind of cowers like that. But that behavior really set people's alarm bells going. It spurred a lot of people posting their own, which I don't think that you should be posting a video of your kid
on hunting supplies. Well, yeah,
in response to this.
There
like,
because
obviously, kids usually don't cower like that.
So today we're finally putting that money to good use and we're making elk steak nachos.
Or like not even flick them, just pretend to flick them. They're usually not doing that either. Please don't post videos just to prove her wrong. I don't think it's. I don't think it's the statement that you think it's making. It set off alarm bells for a lot of people, so people went back and started combing through her content and finding videos like this one.
I mean, I have a million of these, but not least for this video. I'm not changing my kid's diaper when they pee. I've never done that. Do you know how expensive diapers are? I have friends and people that I know that like, oh, they peed, we have to change their diaper. And I'm like, they peed? Literally, I will change his diaper if he poops. Or if it's like a very full diaper.
Okay, so the video I feel like I saw the most people, like there's a few to be outraged about here. Not changing the diaper unless it's to a certain point is just wild to me. I know diapers are expensive and I get that, but there are consequences for not changing children's diapers in a timely manner. That can include urinary tract infections, that can include diaper rashes, that can include other health problems. Like, it's important for their level of comfortability and health that you change it in a timely manner. Like, somebody else who I know does this, who's also a terrible person because she always posts about it on social media, is Carissa. Carissa always does that. They're always like,
Collins.
Yeah, they're always soaked in their diaper, and she waits until the last possible minute, and she kind of has what I believe to be the same mentality about it. But that has consequences. It might not every time, but generally speaking, I think it's just horrible practice to not change your children immediately. Like, I know they're children, but think about if it was you.
Yeah. And I feel like it comes from the idea like, oh, it wicks away the moisture. It's not so you can keep it on for longer. It's so they're not absolutely miserable from when they pee until when you change it. You're still supposed to change it. It's still sitting. It's like sitting in your wet underwear until you change it. It's no different. It's just less uncomfortable.
And let me be clear. This is my personal opinion. These are our personal opinions as parents, like as humans who have a child and have done this before. Like, these are our personal opinions. And I think the majority of the internet agrees. And lots of them, like, I noticed lots of overlap with food related things. Like, lots of controversies surrounded food related things, like a specific video where they're at a restaurant and she or her husband slaps their son's hands away when he's reaching for food.
Well, both of them have done it. I've seen clips where both of them
She said it's because they wanted him to eat something else first. I don't know that I necessarily believe that. This is the internet. Believe whatever you want. And interestingly, I haven't seen anybody post this one in particular. Maybe other people have, but I wanted to bring attention to this one because she talks about some of her own kind of relationship with food and how food was treated when she was growing up, which I think gives some insight into why she might have this sort of unhealthy perspective.
Thing about me and my parenting is that you're not getting down from the table until your food is gone. Lately, dinner time and mealtime with my toddler is becoming such a freaking chore. I don't know, I've come this far to not just come this far. I'm sorry, but we're not having cereal for dinner. We're not having goldfish for dinner. If I make dinner, we're having dinner. I'm not giving my toddler ridiculous huge size portions. He's having a very normal portion for a 2-year-old. I grew up that you don't waste food. So when you have dinner, you don't get down from the table until your plate is gone. If you don't like that food, I grew up, you better plug your nose and you better eat it. Like, I can tell you right now, my least favorite food when I was a child was lasagna. I hated lasagna so much, but I have vivid memories of me, like, plugging my nose trying to get that down. No, I'm not, like, traumatized by it. Some people say, oh, this will traumatize your children. It doesn't traumatize you. Honestly, it just makes you grow up to not be a picky eater. Because now, lasagna, I love lasagna. I don't know why I was so afraid of it when I was a kid. Honestly, I think it was a texture problem. I hated cottage cheese. I mean, let's be real. I still don't like the texture of cottage cheese, but I'll still eat it. But I don't know. Mealtime with my toddler lately is just becoming such a chore. Like, sometimes dinner time can last, like, 45 minutes, if I'm being honest. Sometimes more. And sometimes we're bribing him that if he finishes his whole meal, then he can have cookie or ice cream or whatever. Is anyone else like this, or is that just me?
And also not, there was another video where they're at a restaurant and, like, they're eating and he doesn't have any food in front of him. Yeah.
And some of these are tough because you don't know the context. In that one in particular, it looked like he was on the verge of a meltdown, which I understand. If your kid is got big emotions going on, food is probably not something that they're going to really give a shit about. But also, don't film. Like, you don't need to film that.
Why are you filming it? That's your fault.
And when you're filming it and posting it online, people are going to be concerned by that shit. And I've seen people throwing the term Ruby Frankie 2.0 around.
She had some things to say about that.
The fact that I'm even being compared right now to Ruby Frankie is absolutely comical. It's hilarious, really. We live in a world nowadays where people will turn nothing into something. We live in a world where people are so desperate to become TikTok famous, they will post about anything in order to get views for themselves.
That sounds awful familiar.
They don't care if it's going to bring someone down with it. They just want to become TikTok famous. The fact that my children are happy, they're healthy, well-nourished, they're running around playing, that should be a pretty good indicator that everything's just fine. It's great. They always have a clean bum and never have a dirty diaper on. The fact that this is even a thing right now is something that it truly is really funny. Honestly, with social media nowadays, I can sit down and eat a sandwich and that would be controversial for some reason. I've had a lot of friends in my life ask me how to get started on social media and on TikTok specifically, and I've always told them,
only do it if you have ridiculously thick skin. You cannot post your life on social media if you don't have thick skin.
And I mean, there are some commonalities. Ruby also withheld food from her
weird
kid
about food with
and
her
was
kids.
weird. Yeah, was weird about it. There's another clip where she is explaining that they got home
Allegedly withholding food. We don't know.
Yes. No, Ruby was withholding food.
Ruby was.
Ruby
but in
was.
this
I don't know what she's
situation,
doing.
Yeah.
There was another clip where she had said that they had gotten home late and it was nap time, but her son was really hungry and needed to eat, but she didn't want to fuck up nap time, so she just gave him a little morsel and then sent him off to bed, which how are you supposed to have a restful nap when
You're hungry.
you're hungry? So it's just these kinds of things that are like really concerning. And just like with the issues that she was having with people contacting the nursing board, she is very flippant in her response regarding these concerns.
In the video that you guys are all freaking out about, they're just playing. They're always playing. They're always playing where they scare each other. James is obsessed with dinosaurs and bears, and when they look away and they come back and they scare each other, and they play, like when they throw something, they'll play throw it, you like psych them out, and they flinch and whatever. Like that's what they're always doing. They're always like hiding behind couches and jumping at each other and chasing each other around the house and up the stairs and down the stairs and tackling each other. They're always playing constantly, to the point where like if I'm trying to talk to my husband, I can't because he's always playing with my son. Nothing's going on. You can't believe everything you see on social media. You just can't. I promise, and when I promise this, I'm serious. Nothing is going on. No, I don't really owe anyone an explanation. I could just be like everybody else, and when stuff like this happens, I could just keep quiet, and I thought about keeping quiet, just kind of letting it blow over. But I thought, I don't want that. I don't even want the thought of that out there. I don't want anyone to suspect anything, that even to be questioned whatsoever, that me or my husband, that we do not love our children, that we do not treat them with anything other than love. Like, it's crazy. There's nothing. There's nothing going on.
And I just really feel like this does not lend well to making people think that there's not an issue when you're constantly taunting people who
like doubling down
are nervous. And I mean, people see things that happen on the internet, and then when something happens like Ruby Frankie and everyone goes, oh my God, we all watched this happen and there was nothing that we could do. People's brain chemistry change and they think, when I see something, I'm going to fucking say something.
By that point, it is so far bad. Like, we are so deeply bad by the time we get to a Ruby point. Like, we followed Ruby and Jody for years. We covered their content. We watched them. We watched all these things happen. And we raised the alarm. And so did many other people, including her own daughter, tried to do the right thing by these other kids. And it didn't work. And so when people are like, oh, when these things come up, like, well, no, it's like, these are the things that happen behind the scenes before things get generally worse. Like, if you're willing to, and I don't know that this is what she's doing, but if you're somebody that's willing to withhold food from your kid, that's like kind of concerning. That sends you down like a not good path. Like, everybody was like, oh, Ruby won't get worse. And then now we know what she was doing behind the scenes, right? Like, if it always bewilders me when influencers are willing to like film this kind of shit. Because I said this with Ruby too. If you're willing to put this stuff on the internet, what are you not comfortable putting on the internet? Like, what are you not recording and putting it out there because it's not appropriate? Like, that is concerning to me, you know? And like, people talk about spanking and things because she says that she's fine with spanking.
I'm a mom to an 18-month-old, and I'm sorry, but a pat on the bum doesn't hurt them. It helps them on the long run.
And like, if we consult the research,
or what she says, a pat on the bum, categorically.
That's what that means, is it not?
Yeah, be so for real. It's not a pat on the bum.
I just, in those situations, encourage you to look at the evidence. Like, look at the evidence for spanking, because there's a lot of it now. Because our generation, my parents did it. Like,
my parents too.
There's a lot of evidence now about what spanking actually does. And we know from research, from evidence, from repeated different people documenting these things and scientists and researchers studying this phenomenon, that it generally increases aggressive behavior. Okay, Jordan here with some research for the top of your cranium. We now have enough research to conclude that spanking is ineffective at best and harmful to children at worst. We also know that a range of professional and human rights organizations condemn the practice and urge parents to use alternative forms of discipline. We thus have research-based and human rights-based reasons for not spanking our children. But there is a third reason not to spank our children, and that is a moral one. Although most Americans do not like to call it so, spanking is hitting and hitting is violence. By using the euphemistic term spanking, parents feel justified in hitting their children while not acknowledging that they are in fact hitting. We as a society have agreed that hitting is not an effective or acceptable way for adults to resolve their differences, so it should not be a surprise that hitting children, like hitting adults, causes more problems than it solves. It is time to stop hitting our children in the name of discipline. It increases things. It impacts their school performance. It impacts emotional development. So, spanking isn't great. I know we're all fine, but I'm a therapist and they're not fine.
It is not just great. It is abuse. Categorically. If you want to argue in the comments, I'm going to block you because you don't have any evidence. And saying I turned out just fine. If I see somebody in the comments here, I'm going to time code link you right here. Shut the fuck up. For the love of God. This one, I do not care. I don't care what argument you have to offer. Evidence-based, there is nothing. You have nothing. Hitting your kids is abuse. Hannah, if you end up seeing this, stop doing that. It is abuse, and it's not doing what you think it's doing. Period. If that's what you're doing, it is abuse. Period.
Hitting your kid. If I can't, as an adult, hit somebody when I'm pissed off because you wouldn't do that, why are you willing to do that to your kid?
A defenseless kid, a child.
Plus, what are you then teaching them? We're teaching them that hitting is okay? Their brains can't process that in the same nuanced way that our fully developed brains can? There's just so much wrong with that. And I'm not out here to make judgments on anybody's parenting. I'm just saying, evidence-wise, this is doing nothing for you. And if it's doing nothing for you and you still do it anyway, then you're hitting your kids just to hit your kids.
Out of spite.
I'm sorry. There's no reason for it anymore. There is more research, more tools, more things online, things that are more... there's a toddler discipline course that is, hugely popular on Instagram, Big Little Feelings. That,
I know.
And it is affordable, where you can have access, and there's plenty of even free resources that you can have access to improve your parenting.
Yep.
There is no excuse in today's day and age. There is
especially when you are online, in this capacity. So,
because like it or not, you are influencing people.
Yeah.
People are watching your content and taking something away from that. And that's the responsibility that you have as an influencer.
I know this probably sounds mom shamey, and it's tough to have a conversation around this. And moms are huge targets for society for always doing the wrong thing, for raising delinquents and raising children by themselves and how they turn into delinquents and whatever.
Not present enough.
Shit is going on in
shouldn't be
the current
working.
discourse.
Shouldn't be staying at home. Nobody can win. Nobody understands that more than a working mom.
Yes. But when we're seeing someone who is posting things like this and then scoffing at the people who are concerned and continuing to post things that people find concerning, it's what do you expect is going to happen? People are concerned and you're continuing to post. If none of these things were truly going on, you would think that there would be some sort of moment of sincerity and a pivot away from that kind of thing.
Or we wouldn't have evidence of it on your freaking social media.
It's just...
Hello?
So aggravating. And
it's hiding. The problem that I have with it is there is mom shame plentiful on the internet, right? There is mom shame everywhere. You can find it anywhere you look. I get it. Everybody there is no shortage of that, unfortunately, on the internet. But you cannot hide behind mom shame when you're being held accountable for behavior that's not okay, objectively. You can't do that. You can't be oh, people are just mean. I'm being mom shamed. Abusing your kids and being called out for that is not mom shaming. That's holding you accountable for behavior that is not okay. There's a difference. If I said, you're a shit mom because you work, that's mom shame.
Yeah. That's things that are out of your control. That would be mom shaming. And I've seen plenty of that as well. And those people are wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's plenty of stuff that can be said that is absolutely valid criticism.
You're loading us up.
Yeah.
you're providing the evidence. Like, I've got it like right here playing out right before my eyes. Like, I can't deny that.
And like bold face admitting that you're at 18 months, your son had no vaccines. That's concerning.
Couldn't be me.
That's concerning, especially as a nurse. And she said in another video that she does tons of research and it still makes her nervous. Well, what is it making you nervous for? You're not getting them.
When it comes to vaccines and giving medications to my kid, I do so much research and I'm so hesitant with all of it.
First off, and I'm concerned what your research is, because she had another video where she was going in to get birth control and she's like, I don't really know about the IUD. Can you guys tell me in the next 5 minutes before I go in?
No, she was already in the doctor's office. My doctor's going to walk in at any moment. Can somebody comment really quickly and tell, like, are your fingers broken? Where is Google?
Google. Seriously.
Hello?
It's to see these things kind of play out is really concerning. And let's go back to the money situation, because there was another one that went really viral.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I can't spend $35 on a toddler jacket. I know he needs one, obviously. I'm not just going to say, like, don't take his blanket, please. That's brother's blanket. Don't take it. It's cold. I know I can't just be like, oh, like, it's too expensive. He doesn't need to have a jacket. He needs a jacket, especially if it's 8 degrees outside.
But essentially, she was saying that a $35 coat for her child was too much.
The problem with that, there's multiple. There's multiple. But before you even go there, if you've seen her content, she often posts budgeting videos. We'll include one so you can see it. So she often posts these videos where she posts her husband's money that he pulled in that month, her money that she pulled in that month, and then all their bills and tithing, right? And so oftentimes, I don't know, that's a very vulnerable thing to post. Mm-hmm. It's a very, like, intimate, in my opinion, thing to post, is like your financial situation on the internet. I don't want to
post that out there.
No. And so you can't get mad when you post, again, I'm like, I want to root for you, but you're making it damn near impossible.
So tough.
Because it's like, I know your salary. I know your financial situation. I know this because you've decided to post it. And who knows? It could all be lies and bullshit, because that's what influencers do. But you post all that, and then you're mad when people are like responding to the fact that you said you wouldn't buy your child a necessity. A coat is a necessity. It's not a clothing item. It's a necessity, especially in Utah where it's cold. Yep. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? Yeah. Like, you can't convince me that it isn't rage bait at this point, because who in their right mind is going to get on the internet and say, I'm not going to buy a coat for my kid? $35? No way.
I know.
And give no other context? Like, of course people are going to freak out.
So regardless, it didn't seem like she walked off with the coat, because her son was in just a light jacket in 8-degree weather out to the... Let me give a caveat. I don't know if it's true that she didn't get that coat. And when I'm just going out to the car, sometimes we're not putting on a coat.
You're not supposed to wear a coat if you're in the car seat.
You're not supposed to wear a coat in the car seat anyway. So, and sometimes I don't want to deal with that. So we just go fast. I turn the car on quickly and whatever. If it's 8 degrees, that is definitely
different story.
You're wearing your coat out to the car and we'll deal with it, whatever.
It's going to take us 20 minutes to get out the door, but it's happening.
I've baked in enough time to the schedule to know that it's going to be a minute to get you buckled and get you unbuckled and whatever, get your coat on and off. This is where we start to get into the crux of the issue with Mormonism, because in this budget, you see that she paid $600 in tithing, which is 10%
That's standard.
The income. And that is what the church asks people, not even ask, you covenant to do this when you are baptized, to pay 10% of your income to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church. So she pays that $600 tithing, and a lot of people in the comments were like, why are you paying that much in tithing? That's fucking insane. And so she posts a video just talking about tithing and her experience with it.
So I just paid $600 in tithing, and you guys were freaking out over it, saying that why would you go into the negatives financially to pay tithing? I believe 110%. You will never change my mind. This is a non-negotiable for me. Paying tithing, paying 10% back to the church every single paycheck is the reason why I am where I am today. I have paid tithing every paycheck my entire life. Whether that was $5 that the tooth fairy gave me or $5,000 that I got on a regular paycheck. I will pay tithing if it's $5 or $500,000. I will pay my 10% tithing. And so will my husband.
100%, I believe that I'm where I'm at today because I pay tithing. When I pay tithing, I'm telling God, thank you. Thank you for giving me a job. Thank you for my nursing job. Thank you for my social media job. Thank you for my husband's job. Thank you for providing us with income, with a house, with food on the table, heat and water and power and all those things. Thank you that my kids can sleep at night comfortably. That's what tithing is to me.
Okay, now we're going to get a little out of the weeds of what Hannah's doing and into the relationship with Mormonism and where I think that the church is absolutely failing people. No, get out. So she's saying that she doesn't have an insurance plan where she can go and see a doctor to check on her fetus's development. And that's tragic. I think that's bad, categorically. She's also in videos talking about how a $35 jacket is too expensive. She's also talking about how expensive diapers is, that to the point where she's not changing it until it needs to be changed for the love of Christ, which is after several urinations, and because diapers are expensive, and they are. But then she's also saying that she's paying $600 in 1 month in tithing because that's what the church requires of her. And she's saying that she's seen miracles of it and whatever. And I know tons of people in my own family and extended family and friends that have this testimony that when they are asked to pay tithing, even if they're going into the red like Hannah is, that they see blessings. But my question to you is, what fucking blessings are you seeing in your family's life because you're giving up that $600 that could be going to a $35 coat, that could be going to extra diapers, that could be going to you? I mean, $600, there's probably a healthcare plan out there that exists for $600. And it's not her fault. It might come as a shock to a lot of people that it's not her fault. She's been indoctrinated into thinking this. As a missionary, she was taught that they should teach tithing and how big of a covenant or how big of a blessing it is on the lives of families, even if they can't afford it.
Well, let's give the caveat that it's not her fault that she thinks this way, but she's absolutely accountable for the behavior that she then decides
she's
to
accountable
engage
to
in
her children
based on those beliefs.
And I'm sure because her husband was a missionary as well, I'm sure that he thinks the same way. And it is so shameful of the church to see that people are hurting for money because they have this big bill of 10% their income to go to the church every month that they could be passing. And for a church that is so pro family values, we believe that families are forever, are just okay with the idea that kids could go without those things because tithing was paid. Obviously, I'm a cynic when it comes to the Mormon church and the Mormon gospel because I don't believe that anything has ever come. Anything in her life, I believe, is just a coincidence. Just as I believe that anything that happened in my life because I paid my tithing is a coincidence as well. So I'm going to stay. Obviously, that's my opinion. That's probably not how she sees it. But it is just so shameful to me that this is the kind of thing that happens. And this is not unique. Every member of the Mormon church in the world has covenanted to pay their tithing. And it's the same 10% everywhere. And 10% is a lot more in other places than it is in the United States, cost-wise. I've seen it firsthand, and it's awful. Now, there are programs that Hannah has access to. She pays her tithing, and there are like...
That's what gets me.
Yeah.
She is a member in good standing, I would assume, right?
She goes.
She follows the rules, I would assume. She goes on Sundays. She's involved. She pays her tithing. Like, tithing's generally the biggest one. And when you have that, the bishop, the leaders in the Mormon church can be a resource to you. Like, if you are struggling financially in any way, whether it be like mortgage, food, kids stuff, like housing, I've seen it all the time. Like, bishops will even pay for therapy. And so it is useful to members to reach out to their bishopric, to have a conversation with their bishop, their leaders, and say, and if she went to her bishop, unless they've already used it,
I guess there's that,
more than the bishop deems as necessary, I would see anybody who would go to a Mormon bishop and say, hey, I can't feed my kids this week, and I'm pretty sure they would act. I would like to hope so anyway, right? The majority of the time, what I hear from people is that they are generally helpful to a point. Like, they are generally supportive of people struggling financially to a point. Like I've seen it with people. I've seen it in people adjacent to us. Like I know that's there. So if she was struggling to buy her kids a coat, there is like she would not even have to go access like the public's resources.
Seriously, just go to Relief Society.
Like
I'm sure
they
somebody
would
has
set
something.
her up. Like to me, there is no excuse for them to be struggling at all or with any of these things, with food, with diapers, with any of that. Like the church, generally speaking, is going to help in that scenario. So unless she's overstayed her welcome with that help, which is certainly possible, it pisses me off that that's something that she isn't taking advantage of. And there's no way of knowing that. That's me making assumptions. But if you're complaining to me on the internet about not wanting to buy your kids a $35 coat, I'm kind of assuming that you're not reaching out for support in that way.
Well, and
I could be wrong.
there are videos of her spending like outlandish amounts on single meals.
So I just got a $17 sandwich from Surf City Sandwich here in Arizona.
I literally just spent $51 on a single Popeyes chicken sandwich. You can check my receipt. You can.
Or her husband spending $1,500 on hunting shit.
Yes, it's just so tough to really have empathy for someone who is so irresponsible with their money. Our kid comes first. If there was a $35 jacket and I'm like, man, I got like $40 in my account, $35 for the jacket, and then whatever he needs to eat, and I'm just going to eat ramen.
We don't. Like, that's how that would go.
It just makes no sense why people who are so family focused and children focused are
the ones acting like this.
Yes, just so dense when it comes to raising those kids in a way that they're deserving of, honestly. So these are the kinds of things that get me really just in a tizzy. And furthermore, with the Mormon ideology, there are videos. There's a slideshow that she put together of all these controversial things that she believes regarding her kid, and it's just transphobia and homophobia and
unsurprising
icky
for a church that practices that and even throws money behind it in terms of government and lobbying.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of those things where I love to use it as a little anecdote whenever people are like, Mormons don't hate queer folks. Well, the average one ends up thinking that way. And where are they getting that from?
Yep.
If so many of them are thinking this way, where's that coming from?
It's top-down economics Mormon edition, but it actually works that time.
It didn't just appear out of thin air. So, yeah. It's just really concerning to see these kinds of things. I mean, on top of all the other issues that people are bringing up, but this is just how it is. Honestly. And then to think also, like, here's a prime example where brands are paying her, they're giving her money, and
Shame on
she's getting
those
money.
brands.
I know, honestly.
Shame
she's getting
on
this
y'all.
money, and then she's paying 10% of that brand money to the church to do what it wants with it. And in a lot of cases, it's using that money to
try to pass legislation that stops same-sex marriage.
Yep, that's been
Prop
done
A.
before. And like Utah, they don't really need the money to do that. They just have the people in the legislation that are already willing to do whatever the church is on about in recent times. But I mean, they're using it to build up their stock portfolio, to buy up land in other states so that they can just have this ridiculous amount of land for no fucking reason, and giving the church just overall more power. Because this country, when you have the dollars, you've got the power. That is exactly how this all works. And no church should have the incredible amount of money that it does. So essentially what I'm getting at is, like, when we consume content for these people, we get their numbers up so brands are interested, and then that money is passed along to the Mormon church, and they're doing things that I overall find reprehensible. I don't necessarily fault a lot of the members for this. And people will always say, oh, you guys hate Mormons. My whole family's Mormon, and we do Thanksgiving.
I deal with
do
Mormons
Christmas.
all the time.
Jordan works with people who are in Utah. A lot of them are probably Mormon. So it would be really hard for us to operate if we truly hate Mormons, because that's not the truth.
No, it's not.
My
I have
issue-
a problem with bad behavior.
Yes.
That is my issue.
And with the church.
with the institution itself. The institution is the core of it. The people perpetuate it. And I'm not going to give you a pass just because you belong to an institution and you can be homophobic and transphobic and brazenly so and racist and just slap Mormon on it and it makes it okay. Like, it might make it okay in your eyes, but it's not in mine. And that's just my personal opinion as an individual. That's just me. And I support people in my profession regardless of how they identify because that is the ethical standard to which I am held. But I also am an individual who has my own opinions. And so that's just like she has free speech within her realm that exists in all realms. That's why you have doctors who are conspiracy theorists and all of those things, because those are all personal opinions. But that's what it's always going to come down to. I don't have an issue with the majority of Mormons. I don't. I have an issue with the ideology that they hold and the actions that perpetuate out of those beliefs that exist. That's where my issue lies.
I guess in summation, with taking everything into account, it's just, if I could say anything to Hannah, it's at this point, if people truly are wrong about their concerns regarding your parenting and how you live your life and how you're uploading all of this, stop.
Log off.
If people are wrong, stop. Make a change.
Get off the internet.
Don't be so flippant about people raising concerns because, I mean, in today's day and age where everybody's like, we have to save our children. And then people like actually bring that energy to the table in a helpful way. If you're going to be so flippant about it, like, hello? We can't just write off people being concerned.
No.
Because
some of them have bad intentions, sure, because that's the internet. There are people who have bad intentions in our comment section every fucking day. But sometimes there is valid criticism or valid things that have to be taken into account there. And sure, nobody wants to deal with that because everybody gets defensive. It's a natural human response to when we feel like we're being called out. It's uncomfortable. We get defensive. But you have to sit with that for a minute. And when the defensiveness eases, what's left? Like, that's where the work is to be done. Is there something that's actually valid here? Is this an issue that is concerning? Is this an issue that maybe I need to be more educated on because I'm just not? Because when you know better, you do better. And that's the whole point, is like, turn your whole shit around, act like the good parent you are if that's what you are. But this doesn't show that to me.
Yep.
And who knows? We only know what she posts on the internet. Yep. Maybe it's all rage bait. I would love for all this to be fake and she's somehow magnificently taught her son how to act really well and it's all bullshit. I would love for that to be the case rather than the alternative.
I would also hate it to be the
case. I would also hate that, but that would be better than what I think the alternative might be. But again, we don't really know because this is the internet and everything is missing context and nobody knows what's going on. And the only people who know are her and her husband and those children.
Yep.
And I just hope that this isn't like the worst case scenario. The things that are possible aren't what is actually happening behind the scenes. I truly hope. For her sake, for her kids' sake, for everyone's sake, just get your shit together and stop posting it on the internet.
Yep. Anyway, to finish this out, I'll have this extremely warm kitty accompanying me to take us out. Just real quick, if you like what you heard or saw today, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can just press the button down below us. You can join over 100,000 amazing people who have also already subscribed, and we really appreciate everybody for getting us here. If you'd like to support us further, you can get access to exclusive content and things by becoming a member of the channel. It's the button that's right next to the subscribe button. Or you can get the same, if you're like Patreon or whatever, you can get the same benefits if you go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Jordan McKay. You can follow us on social media. We post about Mormonism and influencers and our cats.
Updates. Our cats, yes.
Over on Instagram, you can find that at Jordan and McKay. Same for TikTok. Sometimes we post clips from these longer episodes in case you want to get a little taste of it. You can find us there at the same username. We also have an awesome Discord community. The invite you can find down in the description down below. Awesome people, cool conversations, not just related to Mormonism and influencers and internet culture, but definitely anything that you want to talk about. If you are a fan of Discord, go over and check it out there. But finally, we love you. You're awesome. You can do better than what is being shown in this video. Please
take some deep breaths.
If you saw yourself in any of this, You can change. You
It's
can
never
do
too
better
late
than
to
that.
do better.
It's never too late to do better. And please, please, please do so. I know that we are very rough around the edges, but it is your kids deserve better.
Unequivocally.
So,
I don't know. I don't think it's bad that we stand firm on
yeah, I don't know.
neglect. I don't know. I don't think that's so bad.
anyway, we love you, and we'll see you next time. Okay. Baloney.
What was
I
that?
love you. I love you, but you need to go somewhere else right now because we are trying to get this done, okay? So that you can have a house that you like to live in, and we can love you and have a nice couch where you can snuggle up with us, okay? So just a little while longer, and we'll be done, okay? Thank you. Ugh, he's all purring.